Hey there, YouTube. It's Kurt here. Today I'm going to talk about fairness in Yu-Gi-Oh! And how fairness is relative to whatever else is being played in the meta. But I also want to pick on Konami a little bit because I feel like there's a high double standard within their ban list and what they allow the meta to actually get away with. And I'm going to pick on a deck right now that I think everybody is tired of seeing. We're going to talk about Sky Strikers. All right, so what is unfair about Sky Strikers? Why does this deck keep topping even after 2 years, topping much more than it probably should to be considered a fair deck? Well, even though this deck doesn't kill you in one turn, the recursion that this deck gets, and also the searchability of power cards that are a little bit unfair in themselves, has a lot to do with it. So let's look at a card like Widow Anchor. What card is banned that seems a lot like Widow Anchor right now, but it is actually even a little bit less powerful right now, but you can't even play it because it's generic? Well, it's Change of Heart. Change of Heart is just a basic card that I think actually should be limited at 1, but right now it's banned because stealing your opponent's monster is seen as being basically an unfair thing to do, especially if that monster can have really good effects. But again, Change of Heart would probably be negated in today's game, but we'll just leave that alone. What does Widow Anchor do? Widow Anchor is unlimited at 3 copies, is searchable in your deck, steals your opponent's monster more than likely because 3 spells in your grave isn't that hard to do. It negates its effect, and it's a quick play spell, meaning that it's probably a Change of Heart during either player's turn. Now, with all these reasons that I gave to you, like, I know a lot of Sky Striker fanboys would say, well, it's an archetype, so therefore it's fair. No, just because I listed 5 reasons why that could be an overpowered card. And if all you have to say in response to that is like, well, it's within an archetype, well, that's just a terrible, terrible argument. All right, something that steals your opponent's monsters, I think Konami has said, no, that's just stupid. You can't do that. Which, Change of Heart, I think it should be at 1 because we're just in a format where it doesn't really do anything. But again, since we have already decided that that's an unfair thing to do, having a meta-relevant deck that just steals it on either player's turn, monster negation is a really powerful thing right now. And Sky Striker does not have to work hard at all to get that negation. Almost every turn they're either hard drawing it or they're finding a way, like 3 different ways to search it. That's one of the reasons why Sky Striker is also unfair, because it just has so much searchability. Everything in the deck is pretty much searchable by 3 different cards, and one of them is already in the extra deck. So now let's look at a card like Engage. Why is Engage unfair? Well, we've already decided, unless it's in archetype, that general draw power can be a little bit unfair. Well, I think that you can make the argument that Engage would be a little bit more fair if it will buy the monsters within the extra deck, and it's also searchable by Area 0. That's why I think Engage is a little bit broken, and Engage is not a hard once per turn. And that's why I think there's also a really big double standard when Konami just peddles these archetypes just to sell packs and make money. Obviously, they do have to make money. They do have to make really good archetypes, but I don't think they think ahead in a lot of scenarios. Let's take an example like Mystic Mine. I think in a lot of different formats, Mystic Mine would be considered unfair. I mean, I do play the card in trains going second, but I try not to use it in an extremely unfair fashion, like sitting on it for 5 turns. I very rarely do that. I have done it in a competitive scene, but it's also against a meta that tends to do really unfair things as well. But if they just designed this card so that, let's say you could only use it for 3 different standby phases and then it is off the field, well, that would be a lot more fair. Let's say instead of targeting a player, it just made the effect apply to the monsters, not the player. That'd also be fair because monsters that were unaffected by it could do things. And that's where I think Konami just drops the ball on these types of things. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Nibiru is a really, really, really well-designed card. And I know a lot of people that are fanboys that are on the ball sacks of combo decks, they will say, like, whoa, that card's busted. No, it's not busted. Maybe your deck is just busted, and now you're just all butthurt because Nibiru actually puts your deck in check out of all the ridiculous boost the turn 2, because